All right. Welcome back, everyone who's missed this podcast. We've had a little bit of a hiatus. It is October, but here we are with episode 7 of Sharing the Brain. I'm Steve Magadance, and I want to introduce my colleague and longtime friend, Stu Guthrie. Stu, take it away.
Thank you, Steve. Welcome back, everybody. It is October, and it doesn't feel like October. It's still kind of hot outside, but we are very excited to have a very special guest to talk with us today about social emotional learning. Now, I know that's a hot topic in education, but we want to kind of break it down a little bit. We have a couple of topics within that we're going to try to talk about. But the first thing, before I introduce our guest today, I'm going to tell you that she lived what she preaches. Put your words where her mouth is. Because the first time I met her, she came to our school. She was going to do a 30-minute, I believe, presentation, just kind of an introductory to social emotional learning. And as I'm wont to do, and she was under a time crunch. She said, well, I can do it from 9:30 to 10, I think, or something like that. Well, I started talking like I like to do, a little nervous, first week of school. And I look over at her, and I know she didn't give me this thing, but she kind of looked at me kind of like, time's going. But she was very cool about it. She stayed. I think she probably missed or was late to her next appointment because she wanted to help our school out. And that's Rebekah Cummings. So I want to introduce Rebekah Cummings. Rebekah, say hi.
Okay, so good morning, guys. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a while. Stu and I talked about this in passing when we saw each other last at a faculty meeting, and I was intrigued. I came across sharing the brain, just scrolling through social media, and I thought, what a wonderful opportunity for educators to share the brain. And when you told me where it kind of came from, you and Steve working together and utilizing each other, for strategies and just bouncing ideas off of each other, I thought we do this all the time on our campus. What a wonderful opportunity to do that with people from different campuses and different positions.
Yeah, and that's very well said. And the backstory, I know we've said it before, was Steve and I came with different strengths, and we would always come into each other's office and say, "Hey, I got this. What do you know? What can you help me out with?" And the interesting thing, and I think Steve has modeled this as well, the social emotional learning, teaching kids not just how to behave, but the why. Why is it that we do it? Why are we nice to each other? Why do we go out of our way to do things for the benefit of other people that may not benefit us? Rebekah, do you want to just talk a little bit, just your understanding of social emotional learning and kind of what it means in working with kids?
Absolutely. Social emotional learning is clearly not new to our district. It's not new to in education. Social emotional learning to me is improving interaction and making meaningful connections, not only from teachers to students, but ultimately we want the students to have those interactions that are more meaningful as well, because at the end of the day, we want to be nicer to each other. And so how can we continue to provide opportunities for them to practice those skills and develop the skills that they need in order to make those meaningful connections, like for a lifetime?
I love that definition. I just need to say that out loud. I think that's a really great way of thinking about it, this idea of interaction. And we think about sort of our common bond of humanity. It is how we interact. It is how we learn. We're social creatures as humans. And when we do it in a better way, when we do it more collaboratively, when we do it in a more loving, understanding way, I think it really does benefit everybody. And I don't know if it's always about behavior and acting right. It's sometimes like it's navigating some of the real difficult points of that. And the other thing I want to say is jump back. As Stu said, we use each other. I feel like I use Stu a lot more than he actually used me in this early thing. In fact, I think I gave the brain back 3 weeks ago, Stu, and I don't know if it got lost in Pony because I'm needing it, and I'm hoping that maybe you've got it so I can borrow it.
I will put it back into Pony and get it right back over to you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I have used it up. So good luck with it when you get it back. So one of the questions I had, and I think it was a great definition, Rebekah, is, how does SEL improve student outcomes? I firmly believe that we are involved with the 360 kid. Every aspect of that kid when they're at school ultimately is our responsibility. But the mission of school, when you really get down to it, is what are the students learning, how they demonstrate what they're learning, what are the outcomes that come out of using an SEL mindset with kids. Rebekah, do you want to talk about that? what do you think, how that impacts student outcomes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know, like you said, we're looking at that achievement and how you demonstrate how these skills are achieved or how they're mastered essentially. But to me, what I see the connection between social emotional learning and student outcomes is really kind of a spillover into everything that they do. If we continue to develop self-awareness, if we continue to develop the social awareness in these students, they start to kind of make their own connections to what does it mean to be self-aware of your strengths and weaknesses in math? What does it mean to be socially aware about the power of group work and teamwork, and continue to build upon those soft skills, and they kind of make their own connections to what they come across in life, not just academically, but just any other stressful situations that they have. We really emphasize building that capacity in students, and not just making it about the relationships, but what that means in terms of everything that they come across.
Ooh. All right, we're having a little bit of difficulty, but I think we've got it figured out. They're jackhammering the lot across from my house, so I have to mute mine in order for my pretty face not to be shown the entire time. And I think I hear Clay barking in the background at your place, and so it's a little bit jumbled. That's kind of what makes this fun, is we sometimes run into these things. Definitely. But Rebekah, you talked about the soft skills, and that's a big piece, not just in our schools, but I read an article from the newspaper here recently about the soft skills in the workplace. And, earlier I had said it's the ultimate, role of schools to teach kids, to instruct them, but there's a probably equal part to get them ready for the real world. We don't want to produce, like Albert Bandura said, self-confident fools. We want them to know stuff. We want them to be able to interact with others. I know, Steve, in the past, you've talked about that, being in the high school, preparing your kids for the next level. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how these SEL skills improve that for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we think about where kids are coming from, like at the school I work at, kids are coming from a pretty diverse set of backgrounds. They come from all over the district in which we work. And so that means they're bringing in lots of different skills. So teachers are kind of, naturally charged, not just with differentiating for the kids they have in their classroom, but differentiating for this entire group of students that they're going to experience over the course of the year that come from all over the city of San Antonio. And so when you think about those supports, you're thinking about how you're putting kids in groups to be successful, how you're helping them develop a plan to navigate difficult situations, and then how you're helping them figure out how to present what they're learning in an articulate and clear, understandable way. And that starts for us, when they're ninth graders. In fact, our kids are just about getting ready to present a project of learning to a bunch of elementary school kids here in a couple of weeks, and it'll be their first experience where they've had to really work collaboratively together to create a product where there's a real authentic audience. And I think what's beautiful about that is that some of them are going to be really successful at it, and some of them, their plan isn't going to go exactly the way that they thought it might go. And so the work really starts when they do fall down a little bit. How do they take stock of what happened and what changed in order to, to do better by the next time they've got a shot at it? And I think that's really sometimes the underpoint or the underpinning of SEL is like, how are we supporting kids to figure out how to cope, support themselves, develop a plan to do better and improve? Because it's really about like both their growth as humans as well as their academic growth. So I think there's also this underlining part of like growth mindset, right? If we have this idea that, the things we know are not fixed, right? We can grow, we can change, we can get smarter, we can learn, even as adults who are, as old as used to, you can still learn every day.
But I'm very young at heart. See,
sorry, that was a bad dig. I didn't mean to go that way, but that was,
On the calendar, yes, I'm shy of 1,000,000 years old. But at heart, I am younger. Rebekah, the one thing I always talk about, and Steve kind of hit it on the head, is supporting kids with this. I think, and I had worked at a school 1,000,000 years ago, 500,000 years ago, actually, Steve, where
I thought it was 3/4.
Yeah, and I don't want to mention the information we were using. It's been used. It had been used a lot, I think, back in the 80s. And it was a very scripted approach to teaching kids how to behave. And it was like step one, look at the person. Step two, yada, yada, all the way down. And the kids were dutiful and they'd go through all the steps, but that kind of learning, like we know, is not long-term learning. It's scripted, it's rote, it's not going to be beneficial. And Rebekah, my question to you would be, and using the power of three, I like to talk about things in threes. Let's do these three things, these three things. What would be the three things teachers or administrators could use in your mind to really emphasize to kids the importance of the SEL, not just the steps, but the importance in total?
That is a very good question. Power of three. There is a lot. I understand. I totally agree with what you just said in terms of that. How do we continue to create these skills for a lifetime? And I think the most important way is to continue to provide students opportunities to be able to practice those skills, because we can continue to give them the information that they need, but when it's not happening in that specific situation, how are we able to make that connection for them? Because I think that we kind of assume sometimes that once we give students information, that's bingo bango, that's the end of our job. But finding times to continue to take advantage of those teachable moments, to me, is probably one of the most powerful things that students and teachers can do in order to help students develop those skills. Anytime that there's an opportunity to debrief about situations, what was easy, what was difficult, what do you need to be, in moving forward in order to be able to gain the support that you need. I think those conversations are important to have. How to continue to have those conversations is kind of, I don't know. you being more reflective and being more intentional about your purpose, teacher's purpose in the classroom, I think is the first step. Is just reminding teachers every day that we are here for students and we are here to develop them, like you said, develop that whole child. It's not necessarily just about academics, but how can we continue to make those connections for them as they get older? And I don't think I answered your question, but
Well, no, I think you did. And I wanted to just jump in on there because I think you said something that's really poignant and sticks out for me. This idea of being transparent. It's very metacognitive for to think about the process that you're going through, to think about the decisions and the moves that you might be making as a teacher, even as a leader. And sometimes in circles, I work with groups of folks that call it transparent facilitation, where you stop, if you're co-facilitating, you say, I'm going to stop for a second and I'm going to ask this question because here's where my mind is going. And to use an example, I have two brand new teachers and they're both working in a co-teach setting at our school, and they talk to me about how they will sometimes like huddle in the middle of the room to like have a middle of the class conference about where the class is going and what they think they want to do next. And like, so the kids are watching them do this and they're being very transparent with the kids about how and why they're doing it. I think that's a beautiful model for how we want kids to also like think metacognitively about the process they use for learning. So how do they debrief what they're seeing, the experience that they're having, and how do they keep moving forward? I think that's a really interesting way to think about it. So I love the way you described that, Rebekah.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Steve, we had in our 9-second intro, we planned for 9 seconds. That's kind of how we do it. We're not modeling how to write lesson plans, by the way. But I think that's a great point, Steve. I know as administrators, we do that sometimes too. It's the middle of the day, something may have happened or we're planning something, and you have a little quick get together and you say, hey, what's going on? I think for them to model that for their students, and for their students to kind of know what they're doing, I think that's a real powerful move on those two teachers' parts. Steve, you had brought up in our 9 seconds of planning about taking care of ourselves. Now, as administrators, we like, we do things to take care of our teachers. That's one of our goals, to make sure that we facilitate their job. They can do it easier. What about for us as administrators? Either one of y'all, what are some things that we could do or be aware of as we kind of sharpen our own saw, so to speak?
I think just from my perspective, coming from both, a teacher position as well as the position that I am in now, I think kind of what Steve just said, it's important for not only teachers to be transparent, but it's important for administrators to be transparent as well. When we talk about educator wellness, I don't think that we are lacking opportunities or or things, initiatives that we have in place in order to take care of teachers. I think what we're lacking is that opportunity, or that time to be able to accept that help and truly admit that, hey, I need a minute, guys. And I'll be the first one to admit that I'm guilty of that. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was running around like a crazy person, trying to, return emails and prepare for things, and also just running around, just trying to prepare. And one of my coworkers stopped me and asked me, "Do you need some help? Can I help you? Can I make some copies for you?" And I said, "No, I'm good. I got it." And then probably 2 seconds later, I thought, I should have said yes. I really needed that help. And so we are just as guilty as wanting, it's not truly admitting that, yeah, guys, I need a minute, or yeah, I need you to take some of the, some of these responsibilities off my plate for a little bit while I do X, Y, and Z. I think the first step is really being transparent about the things that we need, or you guys need rather, as administrators, and coming up with a plan based on whatever it is that's going on that day.
I will absolutely echo that. I think there's this interesting dynamic that exists in kind of any organization that is perceived as hierarchical. I mean, we could talk probably a whole nother episode about like flat organizations versus hierarchy. And I mean, even in education, there's a lot of conversation about owning the chair. Stu and I have probably heard that on more than one occasion. And that what's impressed by that is that everything stops at the principal's desk, right? When people walk into a campus and they have, concern, or they have something they want to share it with the principal. And so that, I think, imbues a lot of inherent responsibility on the shoulders of that person who is sitting in the chair. And it is very difficult to, not to own it, but to look to others, or to be seen as lacking in understanding or wherewithal. And I think that's sort of the responsibility that sometimes comes with it. Stu, I don't know if you think similar or different things about that or not.
Absolutely. If anybody asks me, like Rebecca, what you were saying, if somebody asks me, "Hey, can I do this for you? Can I take this from you?" My answer almost invariably is no, I got it. Well, that makes your to-do list as long as the page. And now if somebody comes to me and takes something from me, "Here, let me take this," I will say thank you, and run and do it. But I have a very hard time being asked and then responding by saying, "Yes, I need help." And that is a huge character flaw when it comes to being an administrator, because like Steve said, he's been working 7 days a week for, a number of weeks. And you can only do that so long before, the cracks start to show, kind of a thing. So with that being said, I know we're getting close to our 15, 17 minutes. And I know Steve needs to probably go hang out with his dogs and maybe even take a nap this afternoon. But I did want to ask one question, and I apologize to Rebecca. I kind of threw you a curveball with the three-prong response. I should have just said pick one, but okay. I'm never averse to putting somebody on the spot. That's just kind of how I am. But I see in your Twitter handle, which we will put at the end of the podcast, and I would definitely encourage people to follow Rebekah Cummings. You have coach in your Twitter. Are you a former coach, or is that just a term that you use because of the role you have now?
No, as a matter of fact, I coached high school volleyball for 10 years. This is my 12th year in education. And I stumbled upon this opportunity. Someone asked me one day, "Hey, you used to play volleyball in high school?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you want to coach it?" I said, "Sure." And it was one of the best decisions I ever made, or was made for me, because the opportunities that athletics has to build meaningful relationships over time is just indescribable. I mean, I am truly, truly blessed and rewarded to have the opportunities that I've had with the girls that I've coached over the years. And I know that because I continue to get college graduation invitations in the mail. I have a wedding invitation sitting on my counter right now. And I cannot describe with the things that they talk about, the impact that I've had in their life. And I don't think they have any idea the impact that they've had on mine, and just how I continue to be proud of all of the things that they continue to accomplish, because it is a lifelong connection.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Steve, go ahead. Talk to that.
No,
Steve.
I was going to say, cool. That's a really awesome backstory. I think that often, I mean, even in our experience together in the same high school, we noticed the connections that coaches are making with students. They spend so much time with students, and really they do put into practice a lot of the habits that we talk about from an SEL perspective, allowing kids to do, various different permutations of practice, giving real time feedback and allowing kids to plan for doing better. And there's a lot of care and connection that happens between a coach and a player or a team. So I think it's a really beautiful place to be. And I'm glad that you've gotten into this role where you're able to work with teachers to help us think further about taking care of our kids.
And I will attest. Go ahead, Rebekah. Go ahead.
No, I've really been given another great opportunity to make that connection again for teachers, having been in that position before, and just gathering all the skills that they have and just continuing to build that capacity in them as well. I'm truly blessed. All right, you can go now.
I don't know if I have anything to add to that. I think it's really great.
I have something to add. I always have something to add to it. I will tell you, Rebekah, you landed in the right spot. I think you have a real heart and a real mind. All right, come here, Lolly. Lolly has to be involved somehow. I think you have a real heart and a real mind for SEL, and you can hear it when you talk about it. And I'll wrap it up with this. The last thing you said to me, you're in my office just I think yesterday or the day before, you had observed one of our teachers doing an advisory lesson where we infuse a lot of SEL subjects in it, and you had talked about the passion in which the teacher gave the lesson. It was an 8-minute lesson, I believe, but the passion goes a long way. We talk about the why, making sure they know why, but when the kids see it and hear it in your voice, it goes a long way. And when I hear you talk about SEL, Rebekah, I see and hear that same kind of a thing. So you've definitely fallen in the right spot, and I'm very glad that you shared the brain with us this morning. And if anything else comes up, if there's any other topics, send us a tweet. Send us an email, whatever, and we'll get you back on and we'll talk about it, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. I truly, truly appreciate the work that you guys do, and I look forward to continuing to support you guys in any way I can.
Awesome. So we had this relationship, obviously, with Stu and Rebekah, and in terms of for the rest of our viewers out there, all 16 of you now. We have doubled our viewership. We really appreciate that. You're going to see Rebekah's Twitter handle at the end of this episode. You'll also see our Twitter handles. We're also available at Sharing the Brain. And if you are interested in or have questions about an idea or want to be a part of this podcast, don't hesitate to throw us a line. We're really happy to try and entertain anything, especially about Heisman bees when they come out. So it was good talking with you again, Stu. Rebekah, it was a pleasure meeting you. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you guys.
All right, we'll see y'all next time. Good morning, Rebekah. Take it from there. We'll edit that in.